Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Maddie here, and welcome back to Meta Monday, the weekly series where we analyze the Pokemon Pocket metagame and keep you guys up to date on everything going on in the competitive world of Pokemon Pocket. I need to find a shorter intro for this video series, but it's okay, because today is a really special Meta Monday. In fact, this is kind of the first Meta Monday moving forward, where we're going to be covering our own tournament series. That's right, the Pocket Mads Community Tournament number 2 was this weekend. It was absolutely incredible. I had such a fun time. Big shout out to all of the judges who helped run the tournament, make everything happen. Big shout out to Taj for being our official caster, and Mid-Tom, he did an incredible job on Saturday. Both of the casters incredible. And then again, big shout out to everybody who participated, almost 350 people, which is kind of impressive when you consider that right now Pokemon Pocket's definitely in a bit of a downturn period. Not many people competing or playing competitively, but some people did, and we actually had an incredible tournament, a lot of really interesting results. Now, the next tournament is already posted, so link down below if you wanted to play this upcoming weekend and any weekend moving forward, really. The link will be down in the description below. Go ahead, already register $100 in the prize pool again. I will be covering that prize pool. Unless somebody donates more money, I will be covering it myself. All good. My hair is crazy today. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to immediately take a look at the standings. We'll take a look at all of the top decks. I'll give my opinions on everything. And then at the end, we'll go into the metagame tab and we'll break down all of that data. There will be timestamps down in the description below, so definitely go and check that out. So one thing that you guys are going to love here, which for whatever the reason other tournaments don't do it, is that when we take a look at a deck list, it actually shows here what energy types are being used. Crazy, right? Yeah, anyway, this is the standings. This is what happened at our tournament, okay? So as we see, Frog EX Numatinale, I can't never say the name, but Numa is what I'm going to call him, got first place. One of the best players in all of Pokemon Pocket from France. I feel like he's just winning all of the time. If I had a nickel for every time Numa topped a Pokemon Pocket tournament, well, I would have a bunch of nickels, you know what I mean? And he's just a really, really good player. 11-2, he was playing Suicune and Greninja. Magma Dreams, also from France, big shout out to him, went to Grand Finals 10-3, and he was playing Charizard. That's right, Charizard made it all the way to Grand Finals. Terabyte, or Terra B by G, again, I'm going to call him Terra. Terra from Colombia made top 4 with Suicune and Greninja, and then we also had Timo and Cooley, who were two people playing Jolteon Flareon. We'll get into that in a little bit there. And if we go down, Lullabar from Canada, big shout out to him. Giratina Darkrai in 6th place. Lasso Master was playing a really, really interesting Arceus deck, which we'll take a look at later as well in 7th place. Courage from Japan, also playing Giratina Darkrai. Luchin, who had a really great run playing Guzzlord here, 8-2, 9th place. A Tapu Koko Arceus deck, Ohu, I don't know, from Brazil. You guys have the craziest names, I swear. A. Thomas, Singapore, 11th place, playing Suicune Greninja. If we go down, we had Charizards, we had Snorlaxes, we had Exeggutor Leafeons, more Flareon and Jolteon. We had a lot of really interesting decks here. In fact, there was actually like, I don't even know, there was like 9 or 8 different lightning type variation decks that made top cut at the tournament, which is definitely really fun. Suicune had a dominant performance, as we all expected. We'll get into the data at the end of the video. But yeah, Suicune was, I think, like 25% meta share for the tournament, and then was like 36% meta share in day 2. So it definitely had a great showing on top of winning the tournament. Suicune definitely dominating things right now, for sure. But anyway, let's take a look at the deck lists. And yeah, I'll share my opinions about it, and you guys can comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Again, most of these decks were covered on the official casting live streams over the weekend. So now I have my opinions to really dive in, and you know, I can share everything here. So let's take a look at Numa's list here. The first place Suicune deck, pretty standard as far as Suicune decks go. Again, I do feel like Suicune still is the best deck in the game. It's consistent. It has tremendous upside potential if the board state gets fully set up. You have access to basically everything in terms of you know, healing and bench sniping with Greninja and Cyrus to gust up you know, your opponent's Pokemon. We've got some hand disruption in here. We have extra HP. We have you know, repel, so even more gusting. Research, Suicune to draw a bunch of cards. We have Giratina. I wouldn't say that this is that different of a Suicune list. I'm not like super shocked by any cards in this list, but I would say that this kind of is all around just a quality way to play Suicune right now. I like 1 copy of Leaf, 1 Giant Cape, 1 Repel, 1 Cyrus, 1 Mars, 2 Irida. I think that the Irida is kind of the most important thing for Suicune right now in the metagame, so you really do need 2 copies of it. And of course, you're going to play 2 copies of Rare Candy, Research, and Pokeball. The Pokemon count really hasn't changed. There's a couple of different ways that you can play Suicune. Like, there's a lot of Water-type Pokemon. Suicune's a really good card, but Greninja, just absolutely broken. You got to play Greninja, and then, of course, Giratina. The issue, I think, right now, as we get into this format, and I guess there might be a couple of issues, but this season, this metagame, Greninja really does just completely overtake Oracorio. And it feels like if you're playing a Lightning deck and you're playing an Oracorio deck, you're oftentimes at a disadvantage if you don't have alternate attacking options that you can get up and get set up like easily. You know what I mean? So Suicune's still very, very dominant. I will say that Numa, if we take a look at his matches, like dominated the mirror match all tournament. He won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mirror matches throughout the tournament. Won every single one of them. I think his I watched like 3 or 4 of his games throughout the weekend. I don't think he misplayed once. So that's sort of where we're at with Numa, one of the best players, and just an incredible run, to be fair. Playing the best deck. One of the best players playing the best deck. That's how you end up winning a tournament, you know what I mean? So big shout out to him. Absolutely incredible. There's Suicune, the #1 list of the tournament. Now let's take a look at Dreams' deck. Again, also from France, 10-3. Massive shout out to Dreams. These are some of the best players in the game, guys. So I want to do my best to really showcase them. This is Charizard, Fire Energies only. Let's take a look. So the funny thing now that we've kind of seen developed, at least in this tournament, and what I expect to develop moving forward is, you know, those solo like Decidueye decks where it's really just Decidueye. I think those are going to be kind of pushed away out of the metagame in favor of something like a Charizard, just because I kind of feel like you can play the exact same deck just with Charizard, with 2 copies of Lily, with Guzma, and then just the 1 Cleffa. Basically, you're actually a lot more consistent than you might think. You're still a little bit reliant on drawing into rare candies. But theoretically speaking, Charizard can kind of just 1-hit KO everything, and it can sit into the active spot. Even though Suicune hits you for weakness with Giant Cape and the 2 Lilies, it really doesn't matter. We can just sort of get Charizard set up on turn 2 or turn 3, and then the game is kind of just over, right? A lot of the time. What's interesting, though, that you might be kind of wondering about this deck is that Charizard here we don't have anything in the deck to really deal with Oracorio. We are running 1 Charmeleon, of course, and we are playing, you know, double Repels and, you know, Rocky Helmet, or not Rocky Helmet, and Giant Cape. So we can kind of, you know, use a Charmeleon to get around 1 Oracorio and then maybe use the 2 Repels to get around the second one. But it's just the deck list isn't really teching for Oracorio. You're kind of sitting here saying, okay, you know what? Like I really want to play a deck that can consistently beat Giratina Darkrai and consistently beat Suicune. The Oracorio stuff, if we run into it, you know, it's going to be a struggle anyway. And Charizard, even if you were playing the Sylveon Flareon package, which we did traditionally for Charizard, you're still going to struggle in the matchup. So I think that they just went a more simple version here, a version that relied on, you know, less Pokemon on the bench, which of course is going to improve your matchup into Suicune. I actually really like it. There was actually 2 people that played this Charizard deck this tournament. Both of them went 5-2 in day 1. Both of them made top cut, and Dreams here went all the way to grand final. So absolutely incredible. Let's take a look at his matches, and you'll kind of see here. So he played like 1 Oracorio, and he lost, and he played like 1 Guzzlord down here, and he lost, right? So out of all of his wins, he beat a bunch of Suicune decks, a couple of Giratina Darkrai, a couple grass decks, or 1 grass deck here. Even beat a Silvally Giratina. But what's interesting is that he went 50-50 against Guzzlord, and it was actually 1-2-3-0 into Suicune going into the grand finals and ended up losing. So Charizard overall, the 2, you know, cumulative between the 2 Charizard players this tournament, playing basically, I think, the same list, they went 7-0 against Suicune all the way until Breeze went to the grand finals and the plot armor kicked in, and he just kind of bricked against Suicune in the grand finals. It was a bit unfortunate for sure, but I think that the overall run between both of these Charizard players does show that basically this Charizard deck is very, very good into Suicune and Giratina Darkrai. Just a very consistent matchup spread there for Charizard. So as long as you play Charizard and you don't hit Oracorios a bunch, like in ranked mode or whatever, then, you know, you're probably going to actually have a really high win rate. And that's quite interesting. So I like Charizard. I really think that there's a lot of merit to the deck list. And I think that this is something that we have to really keep our eye on moving forward, quite frankly. Again, I think this is going to kind of take the place of that Decidueye deck in the format, because, of course, Charizard can handle Decidueye quite well with one Guzma. I think Guzma is just a bit better than Red, you know, predominantly just because in the Decidueye matchup, in another Grass-type matchups, technically it's plus 30 damage if you're discarding Leaf Cape, and it effectively does the same thing as Red, except you can use it on a later turn. It all kind of works together. But anyway, I like the list, and both Charizards performed very, very well. Again, this might be like the real contender, right? If we have a real third deck here that can contend very well into Suicune and Giratina Darkrai, then, you know, we're kind of chilling as far as this metagame goes. Things might end up balancing out a little bit more, right? So I would really recommend more people play Charizard, to be 100% honest, considering It went 7-1 against Suicune this tournament, right? So very informative stuff here. I'm very excited about this data and about the information that we gathered about this tournament, because as we go, into this October month, and of course waiting for B1 to come out, we need some accurate, we need some interesting developments towards the metagame. People, I already know, people are already going to watch this video, see that Suicune won, and they're going to just absolutely start crapping on the metagame right down below. They're going to be like, oh, it's the same meta, look at that, who's surprised Suicune won. But those are the people that don't understand the greater, course of actions, right? I mean, 36% of day 2 was Suicune. Like, it winning is not a surprise, but I guarantee you a lot of these other decks that were here in top 16 were nothing that people probably expected. To be fair, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 5 Suicunes in top 16. Everything else here, and only 2 Giratina Darkrai. Everything else was either Flareon or Charizard or Lightning variants. Like, it was actually a very, very interesting, tournament in terms of all of the decks that saw play. So I think that the metagame is really, really fun right now, but we'll get into it later. Let's take a look at the third place Suicune deck, because I do think that there's some merit about playing a list like this, who's not playing he's not playing Leaf, but he's playing 2 copies of Giant Cape, which is like kind of interesting, right? So like, depending on your starting position, like you're in an awkward spot, right? Especially in the mirror matchup, which he did end up losing to Numa in the mirror matchup. I don't know if the 2 Giant Capes really ended up mattering, but there are matchups, of course, where that Giant Cape is going to matter. The 2 extra Giant Capes is cool. You can cape a Suicune and a Giratina, and oftentimes that actually does end up mattering. So I kind of like this list. Again, the way that the deck operates when you're swapping 1 Leaf for 1 other card is like very, very minimal. 95% of the time your deck is going to operate exactly the same. So the little stuff like that I don't think is necessarily that big of a deal, but it is interesting to note that the second highest placing Suicune deck was not playing Leaf, and they were playing 2 copies of Giant Cape. Everything else about the deck completely still the same. And Repel still seeing play. Shout out to Repel. Absolutely broken. Charizard played 2 copies of it. Really, really fun indeed. Okay. Now we're going to get into Timo's list and Cooley's list, which are 2 of my favorites. So in 4th place here, Timo from Italy went 9-3. Really, really fun. He did end up losing, I believe, to Charizard in top 4. So that was kind of the unfortunate part about it, was like, we got the Suicune mirror in top 4, so Suicune was guaranteed to make it to finals. So it was either going to play Charizard or this Flareon and Jolteon deck, which did, of course, make top 4. So if you remember, of course, and this deck's playing only fire energies, if you remember our video on Friday, I covered this basically exact deck, and I was like, hey, people are playing Jolteon now and Flareon. It did really good recently. It went undefeated at a tournament. People laughed at the title that said undefeated, even though after the first day of our tournament this weekend, this is also a deck that went undefeated. Actually, Cooley was the player that went undefeated. There was actually a point where Cooley, the other Flareon Jolteon player, was 10-0 undefeated in the tournament. So, it's just, okay. We also have to talk about it like this, right? Because, I make a video showing a deck and then it does really well the next few days at our own tournament. I think there's a couple of different factors there. One, I do somewhat know what I'm talking about. I'm not just going to share a meme deck and say it's good. Like, the only reason I made that video is because I believed in the deck and I thought it was a smart choice, given the current metagame. Turns out that, yes, some people also agreed. They played the deck in the tournament and they did really well. So, it's just a combination of the 2 things. Like, sure, me making a video on it had a factor in people playing the deck, but the deck is still quality, so it ended up doing pretty well. The thing about Jolteon here in Flareon is that it allows you to attack on your second turn going first, which that pacing, not only that, but also hitting for weakness, is really valuable into the Suicune matchup. And if you are going second with the Pichu lead, you can actually go Pichu and then turn 2 attack with Jolteon, and then still on turn 3, if you have to, attack with Flareon. You have that technical possibility. So Flareon, in Turbo Flareon here, it really adds up to be basically the same type of deck into the Giratina Darkrai matchup. There's nothing less consistent. I can't stress this enough. There is absolutely no difference here from overall consistency between this and then the only fire type Flareon deck with Magby, right? Because Flareon, you're running only fire energies, right? And it has 1 colorless in its attack cost. So whether it's Pichu or Mantike or Magby in the active spot, you can still attack turn 2 with Flareon. That's just the reality of it, because we're playing fire energies in the energy zone, right? So it's not any less consistent. I don't know if people don't understand that, but the baby Pokemon in question just doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't change our ability to attack with Flareon any earlier or any more consistent. Now, the Pichu is needed to get the lightning energy onto Jolteon, right? So, yeah, you can't use Jolteon without Pichu, but you were never using Genetic Apex Flareon without Magby anyway, right? So, because it's a 3 energy attack cost. So it's the same deck. There's nothing different here in terms of consistency. consistency. I don't know how else to stress that. It's just the only difference is that we have this Genetic Apex Jolteon available to us as an attacking option, aside from Genetic Apex Flareon. And it operates very, very similarly to, in the Oracorio matchup as that Flareon does, because very easy. All we need is 2 coin flips to take the KO, and we're running 2 Jolteon anyway, so it's actually just better, I think. I actually just like Jolteon in Flareon better right now, and I think it's cool. It's new, it's creative. Some people also commented this deck has existed previously. I certainly don't remember it, doing it like very well in large tournaments. So, I apologize if this is not a new deck, but I think that it's new to me and it's relevant now in the metagame. So I think that this is a really smart choice considering that Suicune very, very popular right now. So yeah, I think that Flareon Jolteon's really fun. It is a little bit of a Gamba deck because we're flipping coins, but the fun thing about Jolteon is like, yes, like sometimes people are like, oh, sometimes you can flip tails and do nothing, right? Like, yes, but sometimes you can flip 4 heads and play Eevee Bag and then do 170, 1 to KO a Guzzlord, and then you win the game, right? So, there's definitely a trade-off there. 3 heads with red can easily KO a Suicune with Giant Cape, so keep that in mind as well. Like, there's a lot of upsides to Jolteon, a lot of upsides. It's a really, really fun deck, and it's a really good deck as well. I feel like the Jolteon's real. It's not a meme. It's not YouTube content. It's a real deck list. As you see, it got 4th place as well as 5th place. Let's take a look at Cooley's deck, who, by the way, went 10-1 in the tournament, right? So, yes, he got 5th place, but he had by far the best record. Again, at one point, was 10-0 after a bye in the first round and then winning 2 more games. I think ended up losing in top 8. Had just an incredible run, won technically 10 games in a row, and he was also playing Jolteon Flareon. His list was, again, very similar, but just a little bit different. He was playing, instead of 2 Jolteon, he was playing 1 Jolteon, 1 Leafeon. So this was very interesting. It's cool to see like all 4 of these evolutions in one deck list. I personally, I don't feel like the Leafeon maybe makes the deck that much better, but what it does do is gives you a grass-type attacker that can set itself up pretty easily, especially after the Jolteon, right? So I really like it. You can have technically like lightning, grass, and fire on Flareon in 1 turn and then attack on turn 2. Like, that's pretty cool. That's also going to be really relevant specifically against Guzzlord. Leafeon being able to generate its own energies every turn, also being a grass-type Pokemon, theoretically does kind of hard counter Guzzlord. Like, it's there because it just completely auto-wins the Guzzlord matchup. But other than that, it can also be good against Darkrai. So Darkrai lead against Giratina Darkrai, that is definitely pretty relevant. So I like the Leafeon. Again, I would say that this list is a little bit more of like a mixed bag. You have more options, but it's just a little bit less consistent in its overall strategy. And, against Giratina Darkrai, you have Flareon anyway. So, Flareon's just a really good matchup or a bad matchup for Giratina Darkrai. So this list was interesting because it has really strong Pokemon and options into the 3 most played decks being Suicune, Giratina Darkrai, and Guzzlord, and I think that's pretty unique. And I think that's one of the inherent advantages, right, of this whole Eevee package is that you can kind of just play, and the baby Pokemon now, you can really play like any combination of anything, and it all kind of comes together pretty well. 1 Sylveon just to draw some cards, so I think it's really, really fun. I really like the deck. A very creative deck list, and personally, just one of my favorites of the tournament. 4th and 5th place, by the way. Both Jolteon, Flareon. Is that a coincidence? Probably not. It's a good deck list. I would recommend it. Lillabar from Canada, 8-2-1. The other top 8 list here, he was playing Giratina Darkrai. So this was the highest placing Giratina Darkrai of the tournament. What I think is very interesting, if you look at all of the data, which we will at the end of the tournament, Giratina Darkrai struggled a lot this weekend, as well as Guzzlord and a number of other top meta decks actually did very poorly overall. Not by any of the players' faults. It was just, I think that the positioning of Giratina Darkrai has actually become worse and worse and worse. The lightning decks with Oracorio are still becoming pretty popular, even though, again, they're not really great into Suicune. They are very popular. They're all over the place, and they become more refined. I think that all of the variations of the lightning type decks are actually quite good overall. They play Tapu Koko, they play Pikachu, they play Oracorio. They're really, really strong. And that plus Suicune also playing Oracorio sometimes, also kind of teching even more so for the Darkrai matchup. Giratina Darkrai has actually really fallen off pretty dramatically. Again, it was the 2nd most played deck this weekend, but had a really, really hard run. I think only 2 of them in top 16. Really just struggled, I would say. There's just a lot of players that probably didn't do very well playing Giratina Darkrai, just because I think that the overall field, the meta game right now, very unkind to Giratina Darkrai, which again, I don't think was really on purpose that much. I just think that a lot of people are playing decks that are trying to beat Suicune, and then in the process are playing decks that just beat Giratina Darkrai, which maybe also makes sense. So keep your eye out for this one thing in particular. Again, Giratina Darkrai, this is just a very standard list. I'm not too surprised about this list here, but I will say that Giratina Darkrai is kind of fallen off pretty dramatically, I would say. For reference here, just like some arbitrary data, Suicune was plus 12% day 2 conversion rate, which is really good for the most played deck. Giratina Darkrai, the second most played deck, was negative 1.5% conversion rate, and then Guzzlord was negative 2.1% conversion rate. So Suicune was exponentially more successful than either Guzzlord or Giratina Darkrai this season, or this format. This tournament, rather, which is crazy when you think about it, because Guzzlord and Giratina Darkrai are theoretically supposed to be strong in a Suicune. It just doesn't really end up being the case anymore. But anyway, there you go. At 7th place, we have Lasso Master from Indonesia. Probably my favorite, one of my favorite decks, other than maybe Flareon Jolteon. Another kind of new deck that maybe, again, isn't new, but it's new to me, kind of. I don't know. I haven't talked about it much. This is going to be like Turbo Arceus split with like Sustain Oracorio. A really, really fun deck. One of my favorite decks that I've ever seen, at least in the past couple of months. And again, if you've seen this before, then, let me know. But what's interesting here is that we are actually playing, if we go back, Water and Lightning energies in this Turbo Arceus Oracorio deck. And the main difference here is that because we're playing Water and Lightning energies and Pichu, we can still attack consistently with Oracorio and Arceus, but we can utilize Irida. And Oracorio plus Irida plus Shaman is effectively an auto win against Giratina Darkrai. So that's pretty cool. You're able, this kind of construction of this deck list in particular, you're able to play effectively still Turbo Arceus, but we're able to auto win the Giratina Darkrai matchup in the process. And I think that's really cool. So now this list is going to struggle. Like Arceus, like Oracorio is not a consistent option into Suicune, so you are a bit reliant on that Turbo Arceus package against Suicune. So I would say that the Suicune matchup's probably not that great for this deck. But against Guzzlord, against Giratina Darkrai, you're going to effectively just win the game. And I think that's super cool. A really creative deck. One of my favorites. We are playing, of course, 2 Irida, 1 Mars, 1 Cyrus, 1 Red, 1 Leaf, 1 Repel, and then 2 Giant Capes. Again, this is a deck that is specifically built to beat Giratina Darkrai and those other decks that don't have the Greninja, basically. Greninja just kind of auto-destroys our deck here, but other than that, theoretically, it is still possible to win the Suicune matchup because of the Turbo Arceus shenanigans. But yeah, a really, really cool deck, a really creative deck. If Suicune wasn't like 30% of the meta share, I think this deck could be a really top, viable option. But, at the end of the day, really creative, a really, really fun deck. And this player did very well. Again, he went 8-3, made it into top 8. So, big congrats here to Lasso Master. A really, really fun deck. Just an incredible example of creativity and how it can end up actually, mattering a lot, in terms of like a competitive setting. You know what I mean? There was a lot of variety here in top 16 and top cut of our tournament, and I really, really love it. So anyway, let's go ahead and fast forward here. Shout out to Courage. I'm not going to take a look at his deck because it's Giratina Darkrai, but let's take a look at Luchin or Iluchin. The name I don't know how to say. He's just from the United States, even though he's got a crazy name. But he was playing Guzzlord, so this is our only Guzzlord representative in top cut. Again, it's tough. You had to face the Flareon decks, you had to face Suicune, you had to face Charizards, you had to face all of the Lightning Oracorio package decks. So Guzzlord, I think right now is also in a bit of a struggle with a lot of the stuff that's becoming popular this season. But here it is. It's Guzzlord. 1 copy of Will instead of 2. Double Potion, 1 PCL, 1 Mars, 2 Giant Cape. We are playing 1 Red, 1 Guzma, double Lucamine. So, I mean, it's a fairly standard Guzzlord deck. Again, Guzzlord is pretty consistent in the Suicune matchup, but is kind of struggling across basically everything else in the format right now. And it's kind of tough to see. The issue with Suicune right now, I think that what a lot of people are facing is that it's just very difficult to play a deck that specifically beats Suicune very consistently. It's just so strong, potentially, that if it does get that high-end potential out, early to mid-game, then it's just, you can't win. Even if your deck is specifically built to beat Suicune, it can always beat you because the deck is just so good and it has so much going for it. That's, it's a little bit tough right now. So I think the way that things are looking right now is that there's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of really fun decks that are seeing play. Again, big shout out to Iluchin. But yeah, Suicune is still Suicune. Again, I mean, only 4 of them were in top 16. So it was really only 1/4 of the top placements, even though it did get 1st and 2nd or 3rd place. But yeah, there you go. Ohu here from Brazil, also 8-2. He was playing Tapu Koko and Arceus. So this is going to be okay. So this is the lightning decks right now are just so all over the place. It's hard for me to like really define these because there's like 4 or 5 different like packages and like combos, and people just kind of mix them all together. Like it's hard for me to say which one is like better than others, right? And I think it changes week to week. There's just so many strong cards in the lightning type right now that it's kind of working against them because there hasn't like one definable. I think it's really creative and fun from like a deck building perspective, but from like a understanding and categorizing the decks and the archetypes, it's difficult, you know? So we're playing Zeraora and Pichu and Arceus, but only 1 copy of Pichu Arceus, 2 copies of Oracorio, and we are playing PCL Giant Cape, but we're playing 1 Tapu Koko here, right? 2 Energy Switch, 1 Giovanni, 1 Guzma. So we're like an Oracorio Flex sort of Turbo Arceus Tapu Koko deck is what this is, I guess. And you know, it's interesting. Arceus is like a weird Pokemon. Tapu Koko specifically, also definitely one of the best Pokemon into the Suicune matchup, but again, playing only 1 copy of them, it's a little bit sketchy. Maybe we don't draw Tapu Koko. We kind of do need it for the Suicune matchup. And then, of course, you know, 2 Zeraora, which also can be good in the Suicune matchup as well. But, like, Oracorio is probably not going to be that helpful. If you lead Oracorio going first, like, good luck against Suicune. It's just not going to go well for you. And 1 Pichu is also interesting, you know what I mean? So we are a bit reliant on the Zeraoras and the elemental switches. And then when you're playing Arceus, you have to be a lot of different basic Pokemon, right? So that our bench is always full. And yeah, you know, that's just sort of how that goes. So I don't have much else to say about the deck. Again, it's really good. It's not like that crazy when you compare it to like the water lightning Irida Shaman Arceus deck, but it's still basically kind of Turbo Arceus. It's like a flex Turbo Arceus deck or it's like a mix between Turbo Arceus and Tapu Koko Arceus. It's like a combination of them both. Both strong cards, strong decks. I do like them. Yeah, shout out to him. He went 8-2, 10th place. More Suicune. Let's take a look here at Juggernaut. This might be like a normal Jolteon deck. Yeah. So this Jolteon deck, or not, yeah, this Flareon deck isn't playing Jolteon. Just straight fire here. Again, I think Turbo Flareon's still, again, a fine deck list. The other 2 above it were playing Jolteon, so I do kind of think that Jolteon makes a little bit more sense right now with so many Suicune seeing play, but, you know, even just the normal Flareon package, still a good deck list, so there you go. I would swap to the Jolteon if it were me. You guys probably already know that because I made a video on it, but anyway, shout out to Juggernaut from Philippines. Great run. A couple more Suicunes, and then here was Magma Prelux. So again, both of the Magma players were playing Charizard. They both kind of got a little bit lucky dodging the Oracorio matchups. Although, if we take a look at Prelux, like he did end up losing to Giratina Darkrai. But if you take a look, he beat 1, 2, 3, 4 Suicune Greninjas before that, right? So I think he got a little bit unfortunate. He probably bricked against Giratina Darkrai, which, you know, is tough, but had a really good run against Suicune. So this Charizard deck, guys, trust me, really, really good into Suicune. In fact, my recommendation, personally, right now, I'm going to mention this, the target point here, 26 minutes and 45 seconds or whatever into this recording. If you're playing a lot of these lightning type Oracorio decks, I strongly urge you, and I mean this, I strongly urge you to move off of all of the Oracorio decks and to play Charizard. I significantly promise you, even if you don't like Charizard, I'm sure you want Suicune and Giratina Darkrai to get pushed out of the metagame. So this is how we do it. This is the way of which we do this, okay? Stop playing Oracorio, stop playing Lightning, just play this Charizard deck, okay? If everybody does that, if Charizard becomes the 2nd or 3rd most played deck, then Suicune and Giratina Darkrai will take a massive dip, and then at least after that, it'll give other decks room. I'm trying to manipulate the meta right now, and I apologize, but no, I think we all kind of want less Suicune, so play Charizard. Everybody should just get on the Charizard train. Just play it. Just play it. That's my recommendation. That's my note today. Play Charizard, stop playing all of the Lightning decks, and just beat all of the Suicunes, and then we'll just be good from there. That's how we change the meta. That's how we move forward. Anyway, if we go down here, at 16th place, there was WX Chan from Malaysia. He was playing Tapu Koko Oracorio, and this is kind of the more standard just Koko Corio deck that we saw like 2 or 3 weeks ago that became a little bit popular. Tapu Koko in its own right can kind of just carry through the Suicune matchup, and then Oracorio as well, kind of there for the Giratina Darkrai matchups. It's an interesting deck. It has struggled in the past. Guzzlord exists. There's like some stuff in here that we don't love to hit if you're playing Tapu Koko Oracorio, but theoretically speaking, it is a fairly sound deck, a fairly simple deck as well. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have any other opinions about that, but shout out to him. Now, there was sort of this Snorlax like daycare deck. I love this meta from like outer space, I guess. I don't know where he's from, but he was playing Snorlax and Darkrai with a bunch of baby Pokemon. This is a deck that has become somewhat popular recently. I haven't ever covered like we call them like the daycare decks because they're just playing a bunch of baby Pokemon and then like recipients of those baby Pokemon energies like Snorlax, like Darkrai, like Arceus. What's interesting about this deck, quite frankly, is that it went 1-6 in day one against Suicune. So this is a deck that gets absolutely bodied by Suicune Greninja. It just is a horrible matchup. However, it was like undefeated into Giratina Darkrai. So like that's the thing about this deck is like, again, really specifically strong into Giratina Darkrai, but has a really bad Suicune matchup. It's a really fun deck, a really cool deck list, but its matchup spreads are very, very volatile. I just would not really recommend this. In a format right now that is heavily dominated by Suicune and where, you know, Giratina Darkrai is kind of on the decline, you know what I mean? So anyway, very, very cool. One of my favorite decks for sure, but just like, again, it's like weird. Like if a deck list is specifically weak into Suicune, like it's hard for me to like sit here and like really recommend it. 18th place, Halo here from the United States, 7-2, shout out to you. And he was playing just a standard turbo Arceus deck. So there we go. Cool. Again, there's so many different combos of these lightning deck decks. Like it is cool. I would recommend every single person playing these lightning decks to just stop and play Charizard, and we'll change the metagame for the better, I swear. Froggy X, Wawan, or Waywin? I don't know. He was playing Alolan Exeggutor and Leafeon, but this is actually the Leafy Cyclone Leafeon, which is interesting. This deck list, I don't actually know much about it. Like I don't really know what's going on here, other than the fact that Pichu can just set up Leafeon and you're playing Grass Energy, so it's like a turn 2 90 damage. It is effectively like a counterplay to Oracorio that's a little bit more consistent than Alolan Exeggutor. We're playing 2 copies of Will. So I think the idea here is that you're playing Alolan Exeggutor, but instead of playing like Exeggutor EX, we now have like more basic Pokemon. We have Pichu. We're playing a bit more of an aggressive deck list, and we have purely single prize archetypes, which again, going to be good into Guzzlord, going to be good into Giratina Darkrai theoretically, and then into Suicune, it's a little bit suspect, right? Because not only do we have to draw Will, and we have to, you know, get energies on a Alolan Exeggutor, which by the way does have 2 colorless energies in its attack cost, so it does make sense to play Alolan Exeggutor with Pichu, because going second, you can attack on turn 2 for 150. That's going to be good against Suicune. So this deck list here, even though I think only a couple people played it, theoretically is really interesting, and I think also deserves mention. So it did make top 16, this player, but he had a really good run, and I think that it's probably kind of the better way to play Alolan Exeggutor right now, in a lot of ways. 6-1-2. Actually, let me take a look at his matchups. He lost to Charizard, and actually that was his only loss of the tournament, yeah, because he tied against Giratina Darkrai and Suicune. Now, he only hit one Suicune in round 1, and then he did beat Giratina Darkrai, so maybe he would have won these matchups regardless. So keep that in mind. He beat Suicune, beat Meowscarada, beat Koko Pikachu, beat Savali Giratina, beat Flareon, beat Giratina Darkrai, and then tied against Giratina Darkrai and Suicune, and then beat Giratina Darkrai, and then ended up hitting Charizard, which is obviously not a good matchup for him. So yeah, a really cool deck, although I did just recommend everybody play Charizard. Might not be, I guess, a great time to be playing that grass deck, but a really, really fun deck. And again, if you look at the standings, out of 300-something players, this man was 19th place. Right? Like, think about that. And both Charizards were in top 16. Like, really cool stuff. Yeah, Suicune did win the tournament, but again, really interesting, you know, data here. A lot of variety. Like, I think we had, like, if we look, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what is this? 8 decks, 8 different decks in top 16. Which is pretty cool. That's pretty good variety. And then a bunch more in top 32, you know what I mean? A couple Decidueyes, but they did not make it that far. They did make it into top 64, but lost in that first round. So again, Charizard, I would recommend it over Decidueye. In fact, again, my statement right now, and I will stand on it, if we all just play Charizard, if everybody just forces Charizard for a couple weeks, Suicune will take a big dip, Giratina Darkrai will take a big dip, and then the meta just becomes something else, you know what I mean? And then it's probably better to play Oracorio. So that's the awkward part about Charizard, I guess, right? Is that it does kind of auto lose to Oracorio, but it kind of auto wins the other 2 matchups. Like, it's weird, right? Like, if nobody plays Oracorio, which I don't think people really love playing Oracorio anyway, if we all just play Charizard high roll, my camera just went fuzzy, and then you know, we'll just push Suicune and Giratina out of the metagame. Is that what we're doing? Is that the propaganda? I'm ready for it. I'm ready to spread it. Let's do it. My next video going to be on Charizard for sure. Okay. Anyway, that's it. That's the standings. That's the final decks. But if you're still here, comment down below. If you're still watching the video right now, comment down below saying, I was here, I'm the man. And now we're going to move into the metagame tab, which is really where the data like starts to be valuable. You know what I mean? The people that stick around to this portion of the video get a pretty big advantage, right? Because they get some more context. So that's what we're doing. Let's go into the metagame tab. Let's crunch some numbers. So one thing to note here, all of the win rates are going to also account for all of the players that just dropped from the tournament or stopped playing or just missed rounds. You know what I mean? So the data here is like kind of skewed. Like, that's just how Limitless works. So like a 50% win rate here for Suicune. Theoretically speaking, like a bunch of its losses were also for just people who didn't show up. So it was like all of the win rates are lower than they should be. basically speaking. But anyway, Suicune Greninja, 24.5% of the meta share. That's pretty standard stuff these days. And just about a 50% win rate, although it was actually higher because he had 10 ties, but it was 253 to 239. So, you know, again, in a meta right now that seemingly is supposed to be countering Suicune, Suicune still being pretty dominant, actually a really, really high win rate. But Giratina Darkrai, 123 to 152, 8 ties. That's a 43% win rate. Not good for the 16% of the tournament that was playing Giratina Darkrai. Pretty much of a struggle. Actually, what's interesting, I didn't even notice this, Flareon was over 11%. It was actually the third most played deck. So shout out to Flareon. Flareon, Jolteon. It actually struggled a little bit. It was 101 to 104, but that is a lot better than Guzzlord, Giratina Darkrai. So shout out to Flareon. Again, this is both players, so like not everybody was playing Jolteon. In fact, if we go in here, we'll see that only half of the Flareon players were playing Jolteon. So keep that in mind. But still interesting. I still think Jolteon's better to play in Flareon overall. But yeah, about 50-50 for Flareon. We can expect that. It's a bit of a high roll deck. Guzzlord absolutely struggled here. 54 and 87. That is absolutely abysmal. Same with Silvally Giratina, a deck that I played on the ranked ladder for like the first week of the season, went on a nice win streak. I think this deck is good. I just think that it's a very specific deck that, one, is very difficult to play. Like, it's not an easy to pilot deck, but also like really does not love playing a lot of the meta game. It's really specifically good against like a couple of the decks at the top of the meta. So for that reason, like I don't think I would really suggest this deck in a tournament. I get it was my tournament, so people played this deck list, but in tournaments I probably would not recommend it. And if you are going to play it in a tournament, like make sure you have a lot of experience with it, you know what I mean? Because you're probably going to struggle a bit. Tapu Koko Pikachu, which was the most played lightning type deck, was 50-50. Dragonite 16 and 20, so it didn't do that great. The Snorlax deck did go 17 and 14. I'm kind of curious if we take a look at the matchups for this. Yeah, 1 and 7 against Suicune on the day, but 6 and 1 against Giratina Darkrai. So again, like, it's weird, right? I think this was a weird scenario. It was good against a lot of other stuff, but yeah, a deck that's not good into Suicune, so it's really tough to recommend it, even though it had a high win rate. Espeon, 6 and 16. I don't know why people are still playing Espeon. Kind of crazy to me. Raikou Arceus, 7 and 15. Raikou has basically completely fallen out of the meta right now, which is tough. Too much Guzzlord, too much Giratina Darkrai, too much Flareon. Jolteon, or Raikou just doesn't really do enough. It's good into Suicune, but other than that, it's kind of rough. Tapu Koko Oracorio, 9 and 15, just more lightning type decks. The Exeggutor, Alolan Exeggutor went 10 and 11. The Arceus Pichu deck here, which I wonder, were all of these people playing? Nah, so this, some of these were different, yeah. Okay. So the only one that was playing like the Irida and Water Energies was the highest placing player, but anything that had Pichu and Arceus was categorized as this, but it did go 20 and 10, which is actually a very, very good record. So, you know, maybe just Turbo Arceus is still probably the better way to play it here. But I do like the Water Irida version personally. Really, really cool. Anyway, that's kind of really it. Like, none of this data really sticks out to me, unless we go down here. Like, Arceus and Tapu Koko also 8 and 2 and 6 and 3, so the two players that played it did really well. 3 and 0 against Giratina Darkrai, 1 and 2 though against Suicune. So again, like, interesting, right? Like, a lot of its matchups were just against like non-meta decks. So it's like the data here is a little bit skewed. You were 1 and 2 against Suicune, 3 and 0 against Giratina Darkrai though. So again, it's just a weird, like, these lightning decks. I think people are playing them to counter Suicune, but they're not. They're countering Giratina Darkrai, which is fine, but you know, we kind of want to beat Suicune. Now Charizard though, if we go down, shout out to the two Charizard players, 10 and 3 and 7 and 3. Really, really good, 74% win rate on the tournament. And look at this, 7 and 1 into Suicune, 3 and 1 into Flareon, 1 and 1. So there was only 2 matchups into Giratina Darkrai. Did lose 0 and 2 to Pikachu Oracorio, which is tough. But yeah, basically just an incredible record against probably a lot of the most relevant decks of the metagame. So everyone play Charizard. That's my note there. I kind of want to show you this real quick. So if we go into day 2, this is what I was talking about with the day 2 conversion rates. Day 2 conversion rate is actually a really interesting statistic. It's really valuable because it showcases how well decks did in Swiss, which is like the most like transitionable data towards like a ranked metagame. So anyway, Suicune and Greninja goes up to 36.5% meta share, which from day 1 was 24. So it went up plus 12% meta share, which is crazy. And then went 50-50 in day 2. And as we see, Giratina Darkrai here, 14.3% meta share, but it started at 15.7. So it had a negative meta share. Same with Flareon, actually also had a negative meta share by about 2%. And then Guzzlord here had a very negative meta share by, again, over 2%, which is pretty tough. Charizard, though, and then the rest of day 2 was literally all of these non-meta decks, right? So all of these decks had like a positive day 2 conversion rates because theoretically speaking, like the metagame really is about like the 3 or 4 decks at the top. And then there's all of these other decks that are really good, but they just like aren't popular. And that's really where I think we find some of those hidden gems, right? So like Charizard did incredible well. Went 7 and 2 The only two players that played it both made day 2, and then they both went 7-2 in day 2, which is crazy, whereas Decidueye went 0-2. Again, the Turbo Arceus decks did pretty good here. Dragonite went 0-1. Charizard, Sylveon went 0-1. Silvally, Giratina went 0-1. Flareon, Sylveon went 0-1. And then, like, nothing else really performed well, right? So, like, if you really look at it, like, day 2 was kind of dominated by the Charizards, by, like, this one player playing Turbo Arceus, by the Flareon decks, and then by a couple Giratina, Darkrai, and Suicune players. You know what I mean? So that's the real data here. That's what's really showing to me, is that, to be fair, like, if we all just play Charizard, Suicune will have a much more rough time moving forward, and I would heavily recommend we do that, because that'll change the meta dramatically, and I think everybody will have a lot more fun. And then, yes, once Charizard starts to dominate, you can play Oracorio to counter Charizard. Maybe at some point, Charizard, Suicune, Oracorio all balance out, and then all of a sudden we have a balanced metagame. Thank you, Oracorio, for saving things once again. But I can't stress enough, I think a lot of people's discontent with the metagame is the fact that Oracorio, which seemingly should be the counter meta card to Suicune, is not. In fact, it is Charizard. However, Oracorio is counter to the counter meta to Suicune, which is why you should stop playing Oracorio and you should be playing Charizard. So anyway, there you go. Interesting stuff. We will be doing a tier list tomorrow because I haven't done one for a couple of weeks, and there's actually just a bunch of decks that I consider to be different on the the metagame sort of scope of things. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm talking about? So tier list will be coming tomorrow. I'm actually really excited about that. But yeah, man, there it is. There's the second Pocket Mads tournament, the first weekly tournament. So we will be doing these weekly moving forward, which is very exciting to me. I cannot wait. I love it. I love it. I've had a great time. Again, big shout out to all of the judges. Big shout out to Taj, all of the casters, everybody that was involved. Just an incredible event. I just had a great time, and we'll be doing it again this weekend. So go register. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. A lot of you guys who watch these videos aren't subscribed, so go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. Anyway, we have to end the video now. So peace out, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. And yeah. Bye.